Frankie, in the 85th minute, I thought we were going to be discussing a victory. I thought we were going to be speaking about how Kudus is back on the score sheet, Souček's back in the team and on the score sheet again. Bowen's got a couple of assists, but West Ham being West Ham, you're not allowed to do that. But before we discuss the game, I want to discuss Karren Brady's role, because obviously before we appointed Potter, there was a lot of talk around the contract situation, and that was the reason that negotiations were stalling, and there was a big period between getting beat by Manchester City and Lopetegui being sacked, and the reason was we were trying to get that details ironed out with Graham Potter. In the end, Potter got what he wanted, which was a 2.5-year contract. But now it looks like a really bad negotiation by Brady on my part, because we're stuck. We are stuck. I understand why a lot of people want Potter sacked. I get it. But we can't sack him. Now, unless there's a clause we don't know about and we can get rid of him at the end of the season for free, I don't believe it, because I think we'd know about it, Frankie. So therefore, I'm assuming that doesn't exist. The end of next season, sure, I believe those rumours. But I think we're stuck with Potter, because essentially right now we are paying his wages, but also Lopetegui's wages. And there ain't no way in hell I can ever see a day where we're paying 3 managers' wages in one go. Maybe if Lopetegui gets a new job, it becomes a possibility. But until then, I just can't see us sacking him at all, which brings me back round to, was it in the end a poor negotiation by Karren Brady, who was the one that wanted Graham Potter in the first place? But also, I think it's just like reiterates the frustration with Sullivan's reluctance or actually refusal to pay compensation for manager, because just under 12 months ago, we were in the situation where Moyes was walking out the door and he decided to go down the cheap route to get Lopetegui because he was a free agent, and replaced him with another free agent in Graham Potter, thinking he's saving a few quid. But actually, now he's forking out for 2 managers' wages. So that whole let's save some money thing's gone out the window. And had he actually been ambitious last summer, identified a better manager or head coach, paid the compensation required, we might have actually ended up saving money in the long run, which is quite ridiculous, really. But anyway, I've been rambling on for 2.5 minutes. You've sat there patiently listening to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's got anything to do with saving money. I think it's purely got to do with, let's find someone who will do what we tell them, will shut up and just toe the party line and accept all the things that we do and the issues and the ways that we run the football club. I think that's got a lot more to do with it. A manager, of course, a manager that's at a club, you could look at it like, it's compensation that's the barrier. I actually think it's because anyone who's worth any salt and is doing well, I think it would be very difficult to attract them to our club because of the things that they have to accept by being West Ham manager. And I think they all have to accept that they're not going to get to do the things that they want to do. And I think we're always looking very similarly to the FA. We don't want anyone who's got any character. We don't want anyone who's outspoken. We don't want anyone who's going to, challenge some of the things and the ways that the board have. And we just go for anyone who's going to come in, put their tail between their legs and basically be a puppet for the board. And that's it.
This is why I like this podcast. You've just triggered something here within me that I didn't know I had, but it's more a question, really. Do you think this is maybe the reason that we failed to get Ruben Amorim then? Because when you look at what him at Man United, and I'm not talking about his results or on the pitch, that's clearly not good enough. But in interviews and stuff, I think Ruben Amorim, would it be fair to suggest, is a bit more outspoken? Perhaps, speaking about how the players aren't good enough at Man U, and he doesn't want certain players at Man U. Would you, going by what you've just said regarding the mentality of managers, do you think that's maybe part of the reason why Amorim didn't end up at West Ham?
I think it could play a massive part. I think there's 2 things with Amorim. I think one, that he wouldn't accept some of the ways and some of the things that they do. I think the other thing of him wanting to bring in all of his own people, I don't think they was ever going to tolerate that either. Because again, you're setting off on a foot where he's telling them how it's got to be, which goes back to your initial question about Brady and about Potter. Why the first time we've ever been willing to not stick to how we felt a certain situation should be, which is that it should only have been a 6-month contract. The one time you didn't want them to waver that and go in a different direction and accept something that a manager is asking for, it is the one time where you just really didn't want them to do it. You was bringing in a man who had a torrid time, wishing that you got the best side of him, which is a long time in the past now, let's be honest, and in a very, very different circumstances to what he's been presented with at West Ham. So it was always going to be a real difficult thing. I think one thing that I'm not sure they knew were going to happen, or they didn't think was going to be part of this deal, was that he is such a baby, such a little schoolboy, such a little crybaby. It's unbelievable. And I where Moyes would sort of sit there, poker-faced, stern-faced, actually take it all on the chin. Moyes was very happy to take a lot of their failures on himself and just say, okay, he would just accept them and move on. I don't think they realised that Potter was going to sort of just end up like he is and just whingy and and they like that fall guy. They like the manager who can sort of sit there and take the blame and soak it all up. Yeah. And I thought they felt they were going to get exactly the same with Potter, but already cracks are starting to appear. And maybe, this fall guy that they thought they had, someone who would just sort of take a bit of it on the chin, take a bit of flack. He's looking quite a weak man at the moment, to be perfectly honest. And it's exactly what the fans don't really want to see right now. We're all very frustrated. We've had a tough time of it. And I know it sounds mad when you put in the context of you've won the European trophy and everything else, but I'm talking Premier League matches for the last few years now have been very difficult to suffer, and people at the end of their tether, they just don't want it no more. So we've ended up in a really terrible place, to be perfectly honest. There's no other way to put it. And I think everyone's coming around to the fact now that if he had been given that 6-month contract, that his days would be numbered and we wouldn't be seeing him into the new season. So it does show you that Brady had a massive failure to actually stick to the terms that were obviously good ones. And I think all of us sort of stood there and thought, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. Let's see if he can come in and turn himself around and get a bit of belief back in and whatever else. It's not worked out well. Now it looks an awful bit of business. It looks like a terrible decision. And really, if Brady's pushed this, which it seems like she has, and been willing to go against what we knew was the best option, she's got to take the full flak for this, to be honest.
I think I agree with that, because whatever your views on Tim Steid and whether he was good or bad for West Ham, put them to one side for 1 second and let's deal with what is factually true here, which is he's left the football club. So why has he left the football club? And I think this is where it becomes opinion, but I think it's a fair assumption that David Sullivan in particular wasn't impressed by the business that Tim Steidten conducted at West Ham and possibly how he conducted himself. But Tim Steidten was certainly, I feel, dismissed or let go through a mutual agreement because of poor performance. Because David Sullivan turned around and said, well, the players you brought in aren't up to the job. You've wasted a lot of money. Off you go. Well, here you're looking at Karren Brady and saying, well, you're the one that wanted this man in. You've got him in. You've sat on a podcast on Sky Sports saying when West Ham make a bid, it's our final bid. That's the offer. You accept it or that's that, which I don't agree with, by the way, but it was her that said that. But yet when it's come to negotiations with Graham Potter, she's gone against the very thing she's claiming, which is here's our offer 6 months. But there was a negotiating process there. Funnily enough, back in January, when she negotiated for Banzunzi. Now, I still have no idea if this guy's a good midfielder or not. Okay, I'm not saying we should have got him because he's good. I don't know. But Graham Potter wanted him at West Ham. Karren Brady led the negotiations and did her, here's our first and final offer. And they turned around and said, no, thank you. We'll reject that one. And now he's off to Leipzig for a fee not too greater than what we offered, a couple of million in it at the most. So you could say that she's got the wrong guy in, and she's failed to back the wrong guy in the January transfer window. Like you said, she's the one ultimately that's got to take responsibility, because also David Sullivan didn't like Graham Potter. And these are not claims that have come out because we've got Potter. These claims regarding Sullivan's opinion on Graham Potter were around 18, 24, 36 months ago, when we're looking at replacing David Moyes, possibly the first time Sullivan was getting asked about Graham Potter, and he was like, no, I'm not sure on him. But certainly the last time we replaced David Moyes, Potter was around, available, and Sullivan said no, because I don't believe he was that good at Brighton. It was the infrastructure that made him good. And Karren Brady's won Sullivan over, really, and said, no, let's go get this guy. Why we'd allow someone like that to make a footballing decision, I don't know. She's got credentials on the business aspect of it, and you can debate whether she's done a good job or not on that side of it. My suggestion would be perhaps not. But in terms of the footballing side of it, in terms of judging football ability, I struggle to see what credentials. I don't believe for 1 second she watches much football away from West Ham. She doesn't have time to do to. I don't expect her to. She's not a football scout. I don't expect her to be tuning in to Brighton against Burnley 2 seasons ago in the Premier League or anything like that. It's not her role as such. But then when you are going to get involved in football inside of things, you now need to be doing those types of things. Do you agree with what I'm saying about West Ham being stuck in that we can't sack Potter? Because I'm saying it as fact. It's not fact. It's just my opinion. Do you subscribe to it, or do you think I'm incorrect?
No, I completely understand your reasoning. And look, does it? It's not fact in a sense of, if you wanted to sack him, you can. Like, there's no reason why we can't. Like, there is, if you wanted to do it, you can go and do it. As simple as that. And that's where I'm at. If we're saying that if he was on a 6-month contract, he would be going, then he should still be going. That's as simple as that. It shouldn't matter whether or not he got that extra on time and you got to pay him off. Now, are West Ham going to do it? Absolutely not. Because, like you said, because of the circumstances that you highlighted. So it isn't going to happen. It absolutely won't happen. There's 0% chance that they put, and you know, they haven't got the character or the minerals to do it, Geo. They just haven't. But it would be a big move, and I would respect it if they turn. And I know people will say, "Oh, how can you respect, you know, the sacking of a manager this early on and everything else?" I don't think it's early, Geo. I think the points to game ratio at the moment is dreadful. I think his record at the moment is dreadful. I don't see any signs of improvement. I think he's got very good players around him. He clearly can't get the best out of the players that he's got. I think he looks like a broken man already. There's nothing that I'm seeing that makes you go, there's something to hold on to here. There's something that you can see might get better. And you could sit here and argue that, you know, Wan-Bissaka and on one side and not having a left-sided sort of wing-back is not helping. You could say that Souček down the middle, not having enough athleticism or having enough legs to be mobile enough is a problem. You would still be able to see something. I mean, Lopetegui did get results here and there. He was getting the odd win, and, you know, so, and it's no different to the batch of players that Moyes had around him. So I'm mildly sympathetic that I don't think he's got a squad that suits the way he wants to play football. And I am a little bit mildly sympathetic with that. But again, it's another terrible ball decision that you've brought in a manager, knowing what squad you've got and knowing the players that you've got, and brought in a manager who doesn't fit those players at all, doesn't fit the type of players we've got in the squad. So again, it's just another really poor decision. And all of the things, this is the thing, isn't it? I think a lot of people had reservations around Potter. Quite a few people said not totally sure on his character, not totally sure on coming off the back of what happened at Chelsea, not sure on how he plays football. And the reason why people have sort of gone quickly from 0 to 100 of thinking he's not the right man is because all of their hesitations, all of their reasoning why they felt he wasn't the right man for West Ham are all sort of coming to light. And it's very easy for them to now go, well, this is exactly what we envisaged would happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easier and quicker to make up your mind on someone you have an opinion of before he comes to West Ham, whether that's player or manager. And it's the same with Lopetegui. I was very anti Lopetegui because of what I'd seen from Lopetegui previously. But if we went and hired, I know, someone at the French league, but Will Still, we went and hired Will Still. I wouldn't know. I don't know because I don't know this guy. I've heard of him and speaks a good game. I enjoyed what he had to say on Monday Night Football the other week. Right, very
Very good.
impressive. But I don't have an opinion on Will Still other than he's got spiky ginger hair and supports West Ham. Right, that's my opinion on Will Still. Pretty good at Football Manager. But in terms of him as a manager, I don't have an opinion. So it would take me longer to form an opinion on Will Still as manager of West Ham than it would as Graham Potter as manager of West Ham, because I call it my pre-West Ham opinion of this. Just like, and I can put it down to players as well. So like, it's quicker for me to judge Kilman in a West Ham shirt than it is Todibo, because I've seen Kilman loads of times in a Wolves shirt. Todibo, I've heard of him, but to say that I watched him more than 3 times in his career prior to coming to us would be a lie, probably. Maybe I have seen him more than that without realizing it, but I didn't really have an opinion. Carlos Soler, never heard of him before he came to us. Somerville, oh, well, I know exactly what I'm expecting from him when he rocks up because of what he's done at Leeds United. So I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable to have a quicker opinion of Potter at West Ham because it is, for a lot of people, in line with what they thought of Potter before he arrived at West Ham. It's just confirmation that your evaluation of him was correct. I do have sympathy for him. I still, it's hard because next season there's more evidence that we're going to struggle than there is that we'll be all right next season. But there is an element of me that's curious, which says if we were to have better midfielders, would be all right under Potter. But I've gone from being quite confident to optimistic to now, well, it's, as Gonzo used the term, blind faith. And I think that's where it is at the minute going into next season. It's almost like a hope and a prayer that we're going to be okay and we're going to pluck players out of somewhere and we'll be all right next season. But all the sounds and the smoke signals coming out from the club around money to spend, how we're identifying players, how we're negotiating for players, none of it, and literally none of it, is positive. So while I don't think Potter's doing a great job, he's not. He's doing a bad job. If he was on a 6-month contract, I would want him to go in the summer. But my concern is elsewhere at West Ham other than just the guy in the dugout, hence why the way I started today's podcast. But that'll be my video tomorrow, Frankie, why I'm sort of really concerned for the summer. Potter's a cog, but he's not the biggest one. In terms of the game itself, what did you make of it? The one against Brighton, obviously.
I never felt that the game was done. We dragged ourselves a little bit into a position where I'm not sure we fully deserve to be ahead, but on balance of things, if you take your chances, you get your goals, then you have to accept that, you know, that's how football is sometimes. So what I don't want to do, I don't want to be one of them people who sit here and go, oh, that we didn't deserve to be ahead or they deserve to win. At the time, I thought when we went ahead, I just thought, well, we've done what we've had to do to get our noses in front. And I thought, you know, that's, you take it.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a fair game. I think a draw would have been a fair result over the 90 minutes.
Yeah. I probably think on balance that was probably about right. But the first part of that game, it felt like a friendly to me. It was very casual. It just felt like it was two teams who weren't that bothered, to be perfectly honest. It weren't until that we went in front that they chucked Matoma on, started to get their tails up a little bit, and then it didn't take them very much to go and turn, you know, from being behind to being in front. It didn't take them much at all, did it, really? And that is also a little bit of my concern, because I think we didn't see the best of Brighton, but it didn't take much of a change to basically make them look like they were flying. And yeah, some people will turn around and say, oh, some of their goals, there was nothing you can do about it. There's plenty you can do about it. We were non-existent in that midfield. The midfield was just being bypassed the whole game. There was just nothing in there. It was not good enough. I do think that's probably one of our biggest issues. And then when you watch Crystal Palace and games like that, and you see how athletic they are and how up for it they were, and even not even that, just that game, the Charlton game against Wrexham, and you see, just how when people have really put their self on the line and are right up for a game of football. I can't remember the last time we did that, and they were just very, very up for it. You see players who can just get around the pitch and they can be strong and physical and they've got pace and they've got all of these positive things. I look at us and I just think, like, I've defended Kudus a lot.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I think it's how he's positioned that isn't getting the best out of him. But his head seems totally gone. I know he got his goal and I've been really hoping that comes. It was about time, to be perfectly honest. It didn't quite come how I expected it to be honest, but he got the goal and I thought, right, there we go. But again, just didn't seem to be at it. Like you see some of these other players and they're just trying to win every single ball and they put their neck on the line and they're just, seem so committed. I think we've lost a little bit of that. I think some of these players are already checked out for the season. And that's not good enough when people are, paying their money and committed to going all across the country or even just going the home games. If you make the effort to go there, you deserve for those players in front of you to be showing a bit. And that's also the thing, Joe, if this manager is doing what we thought he would do, and we all said it quite early on that this is sort of his pre-season, whatever. Yeah. He should have all these players fighting for next season, going, "I'm your man. Don't think about changing me. Don't change my position in the team. I want to be your man going into next year." Just not seeing any of that. No commitment, no dedication, no passion, no pride, no anything. Just players who are going through the motions at the moment.
Yeah, that's the most disappointing thing for me on Saturday because I am trying to look at it bigger picture. So I'm annoyed about how we lost and how we gave away 3 points, essentially, not even just one. We chucked away all 3 points. But I think the football on Saturday wasn't that terrible, and it was two scruffy teams playing scrappy football. And I don't think it was a good Brighton side that we played either. But I think had we been better in previous games, like against Southampton, I think Saturday you can put it down to it's just the end of the season. We're not that arse. We'll move on. But because it's like repetitive and we're seeing it a lot, and it's naive, I think it would be considered naive to just ignore the fact that we're conceding late goals to Brighton, Southampton, Liverpool, Everton. It's a pattern now. That's a problem. It's something that needs fixed. And I think, but for me, I think the most disappointing thing was I think Fulkrug gave Potter a bit of an own goal, an open goal. Going into this Brighton game, he teed him up and said, "Go on then. If you want to hook players out to start 11, I've done the ugly part for you. You just got to take the tap in now." And it felt like he had a decision to make, Potter, and he decided to put Fulkrug on the bench. And I know he said it's fitness. I ain't buying that for 1 second because it's been a week since we played. Last week he played 80 minutes or something Fulkrug did, and he came through it fine. And also he played the entire second half against Brighton. So now we've established he's capable of playing a minimum of a half of football. So why does that have to be the second half and not the first half? So it's not a fitness thing. It's definitely a punishment thing. Had he said it was tactical, I'd be inclined to believe him, which is at home, I want to play 4-2-3, 1-4-3-3 with a striker, but away from home, I want to be a bit more conservative. I want to be a bit more pragmatic, play counter-attacking football, a bit more pace. Fulkrug is not quick. So if you decided that Bowen and Kudus are your strikers, all right, I get it. But he didn't give that reason. He said it was down to fitness, which I ain't buying for a second. And I think this is where I have concerns. My concerns coming out of Saturday isn't we lost to Brighton. It's that we conceded late minute goals again, that we've got the same problems again, that Souček is coming out, calling out the mindset of the team. Bowen's doing it again. 3 quite senior players now are calling out the mindset. Potter was joining in as well, saying it's the psychology of the team and whatnot. Speaking of that press conference, what did you make of it?
Yeah, just not good. Looked like a broken man. Looked like Bilic at the end of his days. Just somebody who just looks totally void of what to do. Looked like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He probably looked like he was back to end of Chelsea days, if not even more pressure on his shoulders. He looked totally dejected. I don't buy this mindset thing. I think, like you said, tactical changes played a big part in us conceding 2 late goals. I don't think he does enough tactically. I don't think he does enough to see games out. Are they using mindset as an excuse when actually, because they can't come out and say, well, actually, the manager isn't doing and making the necessary changes he should make to see a game out? They can't say that. So it all goes down to mindset, because they just want to have any reason why for something to change. But yeah, what got me most about that press conference, actually both of his press conferences, the pre one and the post one, was that he seems to be turning on us as fans already. And it's very much now me and the players. And that is a dig at the fans. It is. And all that, they're entitled to saying what they want, and that attitude, you know, he's very clearly already having a problem with us and the way that we have certain expectations and so on. And that was always, again, another one of my biggest fears, is that the way he spoke in interviews, I don't think he ever truly understood us as a fan base. I don't think he ever was going to. And look, that again boils down to the board, because they can never put somebody in who does have the character that would relate to us fans, that we would love the manager. Bilic was the last one that I really took to, and that was because, you know, people saw Potter as a man manager, I never saw that. Bilic made a real effort to understand people's names, families, made an effort to talk to people at events and West Ham at the training ground, or whether it been at the player awards and stuff like that. We went from having nobody or none of the players interacting with the fan base with Bilic to every player having a different table that they had to sit on and rotating around the fan base to try and, you know, just talk to us and engage with us. And then when Moyes come along, the barriers went up again. It's us and you, and that's it. And now it's becoming it's an us and you situation under Graham Potter. Very contradictory in both interviews and with the Fulkrug incident. You know, the reporter saying it's nice and refreshing to hear someone coming out and being outspoken, but then Potter going against that. I think we would all have, and I don't understand it, Geo, if I'm honest. I don't understand this divide and why people think dividing themselves and not being open about whatever it is that you're trying to do is the best way forward, because that's why we feel alienated. We feel like we don't understand what's going on. It's so much better, like in the days when you had Redknapp and Lampard and they're sitting there and all that sort of situation. And, you know, Harry stood up for Lampard and spoke about how dedicated he was, how committed, how hard he trains and all these other things, and that he would go on to be one of the greats. And he did. If Potter come out right now and said, well, look, this is what we're trying to do, and it's not happening because this and this, or, you know, I am instructing the team to do this, but actually we can't bring ourselves to get on that front foot in these times. And that might stem from previous tactical things with managers. It might stem from how they used to play, and it's going to take more time. If he comes out and says that, you all sit there and go, well, actually, I kind of get it. If he is actually trying to tell them to do this and they're doing that, then we need to give Potter more time to get the players to do it. Or, you know, when he gets to the end of the season, maybe he'll get rid of those players who are not listening and are not on board with what he's trying to do. And then he'll make changes, and then you can all be a bit calmer. But when you're not communicating anything, and at the moment in the interviews, he's not really saying a lot, to be perfectly honest, it gives us even more frustration, because I don't think that, and most of us say we don't see where this is going to change or how things are going to be any different. So, yeah, I wish he would just come out and give us a little bit of an insight into what his plans are, because we're all still second guessing it. Is this being played out like it's a bit of a pre-season for next year? You know, are we having players? And we're all being left, even now, after another game and more press conferences following the Fulkrug comment, we're all still guessing what he meant. And it could be all cleared up quite easily
that,
if Potter just came out and said, well, this is where we are. Then you could all go, okay, well, that's clear now. We get it. And now let's see how we're going to move forward with that. So, just it all frustrating, Geo. It doesn't help, and it doesn't help all our attitude on this sort of final run at the end of the season. And if I'm honest, Geo, I'm getting more and more worried about this Tottenham game. We should be looking at it like it's a good opportunity to have, I don't want that cup final attitude, but at least have a moment before the end of the season. They've got other things to worry about. Yeah. I don't know how, but they do. And we should be going that with all the confidence in the world. But after that press conference, I just sit there and think, oh, what's going to happen?
We'll discuss the Tottenham game later in the week. I'm looking forward to it. I'll say it now, I think we beat Tottenham. I've got very little evidence to back myself up. I think we'll be playing Tottenham reserves at the weekend because it's in between their two semi-finals. So why would Postecoglou not fully rotate his team to look after that? So he should do. I'd
love to hear how you would beat a Tottenham reserve, Geo. I'd love to know what your team will be. I'm looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, we're doing a preview and then we'll record our podcast on Friday. So you want to pull me up for anything, the platform's yours. I have to say, I enjoyed Potter's press conference. I do think an element of it, though, or actually not an element, all of it is because it was Brighton away. I think it's a big game for him. Brighton away means nothing to us as West Ham fans. West Ham at home means nothing to Brighton fans. But Potter going back to Brighton means a lot to him and that fan base. When I did that video with Matthew, he said, "Oh, I don't like Potter." He said to me, I hate Potter. He said, bloody good manager, good tactically and all this, but I can't stand him and I don't like him. And when he was leaving the pitch, the Brighton fans were all pointing at him and going, wanker, wanker. That's going to piss you off. You've just watched your team and see two late goals to lose the game. Brighton fans are going mental. 19 minutes away, fans have been singing about how Füllkrug's right, we're fucking shite and get the German on. All the West Ham fans have been singing songs to support Füllkrug, not Potter. Then he's got that. I think it was almost like this environment for Potter to snap. And I think you've seen that in the press conference. Had we played even Tottenham and that had happened, would we have got that version of Potter? I'm not convinced. I think it was because it was Brighton in that fixture. I think that's what's made him just go like that. But I feel like I'd be a bit hypocritical if I praise Füllkrug and criticise Potter. I'm more disappointed with his pre-match press conference where he had the opportunity to really back Füllkrug up a little bit, and he tried to be very diplomatic. He said, "Oh, some things he said was true, and sometimes he said weren't true." And I said, "Well, which parts were true? Then you're just making it even more murky and leaving us guessing even more. Then, and then you drop him, which is like, well, that suggests that you don't like the fact he spoke out as well, and that's." The way he's handled that, I don't think was great. But this is where you've got to see a reaction then. If he's really angry and he was genuinely pissed off, we'll see a reaction on Sunday, which is his starting 11, which we'll see one or two players dropped at least. A different attitude from the players because he's got to figure out who his mates are in that change room because some of them don't want to be at West Ham next season. I'm not that bothered because I don't want to see most of them at West Ham myself. So if half of them are looking for a move away, be my guest. I hope you go. Thank you for everything you've done so far, some more than others, and good luck in future. Got nothing against the players. I don't hate any of them. But if some of them were to leave tomorrow, I wouldn't be that arsed. I'd be like, all right, move along. But I think Potter's got to find out and work out this week which ones he wants here next season and who wants to be here next season. And play those players. But those that are already half out the door, what's the point? What's the point in playing them? And when we do these videos, you obviously get counter arguments in the comments, and some people will suggest, or the biggest suggestion has been, especially with Alvarez, which is, well, we're devaluing him now. I don't believe we are. I don't believe Alvarez's value depreciates because he's not playing, because when he was playing, he wasn't very good. I would argue his value depreciates greater when he's on the pitch, not playing very well compared to not playing. And I use that for every player at the minute at West Ham. And also what you're doing is telling everybody, this guy's available. You want to sign Alvarez, we're willing to sell him. Everyone knows Alvarez is for sale. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing right now. And I would apply it to other players in the current West Ham squad. Ward-Prowse was suddenly not in the squad at the weekend. and it became obvious Ward-Prowse is up for sale. I don't think that's a bad message to be sending out between now and the end of the season either. What's Ward-Prowse now in your head? If he was to not play again, how much do you think he's worth? I'd argue that figure, 2 figures you've had in your head, hasn't really changed much at all. Potter needs to show leadership now, take control of that football club. It's a difficult role. It is a very difficult one. But I want evidence that he can. I want to see something over the next few weeks. It's not even about winning games anymore. If he goes out on Sunday and we've got Fulkrug up front and Orford's in midfield, I'm thinking, hello, we've got a reaction from this guy in the dugout. This is what I want to see. And we draw 2-2. I'm thinking, all right, not the best result, but look at how he's handled this situation in this squad right now. I'm liking it. And that's what I'm looking forward to between now and the end of the season. I want to see leadership from Potter, which says, West Ham fans, don't worry. You're in good hands here. We're going to get rid of this lot in the summer. Come August, September, we'll be all right. At the minute, I'm not seeing that and not seeing it or feeling it. And that's what makes me a little bit worried. Frankie, anything you'd like to add before we round off this week's podcast?
No, nothing at all.
Well, I've got one more thing. How is our little team getting on?
Yeah, we had a tough week last week in that I gave them a little step up. So we played a year above. So, and we also played our first ever seven-a-side match. So that was a big learning curve for them. So the seven-a-side match against the team a year older, they lost 3-0. But I thought they held themselves and done really, really well. It was 0-0 right through the first 3 quarters. And the last quarter, I think we just burnt out. I mean, the pitch was massive. If you think going from a small 5-a-side pitch to a big 7-a-side pitch, I think the pitch caught us out a little bit, but we did really well. And then we also had a challenge against a top 15 side in the Tandridge League. Which doesn't sound a lot, but I think there's like 80 teams. So they're one of the top teams in there. We played against those and we lost 7-6. They scored a last minute winner. It was 6-6. And when the other team scored their winner, I don't think we had a single player in our own half. They all just wanted to go and get the winner. And I was only happy to let them do it. It was a friendly, it was a fun game. It was a really good environment. We'd all really enjoyed it. And I just went, go on, go.
So the team you managed lost in the last minute of the game.
Yeah,
Frankie
I'm
Potter.
learning from Potter. That's exactly
Frankie
right.
Potter.
However, Geo, in our league match, we did absolutely fantastic. We played 2 league matches at the weekend. We won the first one 3-2, and then we lost the last one 2-1, which was quite unfortunate. But on balance of things, I think the other team probably did deserve to nick it. But 4-4 if you group the 2 games together. So, yeah, it was a very fun, very active week of football after a couple of weeks off for Easter. So, yeah.
Well, that's the main thing. As long as they're enjoying it, that's the main thing at the end of the day. But thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch up with you on Friday morning where you can call me out and anything you want, because I've got a feeling I'm not going to have a Spurs fan video this week because they play Thursday. So I need to do the video on Friday. Finding a fan is difficult enough. Finding one specifically for Friday morning, a bit tricky. So I'm not sure I have an opposition. I'll do my best to see if I can get an opposition preview done, but I might not be able to. But Frankie, thank you so much for joining me. If you guys at home have enjoyed it, please do drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up before you disappear. Subscribe to Hammer's Chat. Catch you in a bit.